So I want to get into some Jayson Tatum discourse today because there's been a lot of conversations about Steve Kerr benching Jayson Tatum last week. It was very weird as a Celtics fan, I'm not going to lie, seeing the media praise Jayson Tatum, speak positive about Jayson Tatum. Because what do you see on the internet? A lot of trolling from fans. People saying, oh, he's a glorified role player. He's not a top 10 player, yada, yada, yada. People who just don't know basketball whatsoever. To see the media praise him after the playoffs, they were trying to say, oh, Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Who's better? Kendrick Perkins came out and said Jayson Tatum should have had 50 points in game one against the Pacers. You see all this negativity about Jayson Tatum, and the reality is he's just getting better as a basketball player. If we look at Tatum over the past 2 years and where he's improved, his playmaking has gotten better. He's gotten better at finishing at the rim, and he's a better rebounder. He's stronger, and he can handle bigger dudes in the paint. Look at the Dallas series. Without Jayson Tatum, Dallas is probably getting more opportunities at the rim with their alley-oops. But with Tatum playing at the center position, he was able to take all that away for Dallas. Dallas wasn't able to have those lobs at the rim because Tatum was holding his own in the paint. You look at his ability to make better decisions. When Dallas was trapping him, he was driving to the rim. He was making the right reads out there, playmaking, making those great passes. And he's come a long way because in 2022, he struggled in these areas. He wasn't as strong as he is now. He's a better rebounder. He's able, again, to hold himself in those areas where you have bigger guys, taller guys, and also he's able to dish it out a lot more. The two things that Jayson Tatum needs to improve on to elevate his game into that top 5 conversation, the first thing is he's got to be better at having a go-to move when he finishes at the rim. The layups look shaky. They look unorthodox. I think if he can work on finishing at the rim with a consistent go-to move, that's only going to elevate his game. The second thing is have a consistent mid-range game. The step back threes, the pull up threes, selling for a 3-point shot, it gets very predictable and you're very easy to guard. If Tatum can find a way, like Jaylen Brown, when he drives to the rim, he has a consistent move where he can stop on the go and shoot over the top of somebody in the mid range. That is something I would like to see Tatum get better at because if he adds that to his game, he's literally unguardable. Whether you like him or don't like him, you're not guarding Jayson Tatum on a consistent basis if he has a package of different moves. Now, Draymond Green did come on his podcast and talked about how Steve Kerr made a mistake benching Jayson Tatum. He talked about how his rotations don't make any sense. One game he's playing Jayson Tatum, the next he's not. He talked about his post-game press conference that it was not the best idea. And then he felt bad. He's like, I'm going to start Jayson Tatum as an apology to him. Another thing is you had Joel Embiid starting the next game. He's not playing at all. And Halliburton, he should be getting playing minutes as well. It just doesn't make sense what Kerr has been doing because he's looking at it as, oh, I got it's matchup dependent, blah, blah, blah. But the USA has a talented roster. They're the best team in the Olympics. You can play Halliburton for a 5-minute stretch. You can play Tatum for a 7-8 minute stretch. I don't think Tatum needs to be starting. If he starts, great. But if he's playing a role on the bench, that's fine as well. But as Draymond said, the rotations need to be more consistent. Guys need to know when they're coming to the game and when they're not supposed to be in the game. But when you're being random, it just throws off the rhythm of your team. And what Jayson Tatum offers to a roster is one, versatility. He has shown he can guard 1 through 5. We saw it in the NBA Finals. He can play your center and hold his own. He's also great on defense. He can play make. He can rebound the basketball. He can hold his own in the paint. And he does a lot of different things that you would want on your basketball team. Also, in the last Olympics in 2021, he was the second leading scorer on that team. They built their offense around Tatum and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was trying to pass the torch to Jayson Tatum during that Olympic run. So to act like Jayson Tatum has never been on the stage before and that he doesn't deserve more opportunities is crazy to me. Regardless if you like Tatum or hate Tatum, he does provide a lot of value to the Olympic roster because he's shown in the past that he can show up and perform. And when it comes to the roster itself, you don't need to please everybody. Just because LeBron James scores 8 points, it's not a big deal. Or Steph Curry, he has a couple of layups and one made 3. Okay, cool. Or Anthony Davis, he scores 12 points and has 5 or 6 rebounds. That's not the point. What you're trying to do is have a set rotation, you have a talented roster, and make sure everybody's involved. And if you play Halliburton 3 or 4 minutes, that's fine. I think Kerr is getting so caught up in, this matchup, and I got to worry about who needs to be out there, when the reality is you can play these guys. They can get minutes. Like Derek White shouldn't be getting more minutes than Jayson Tatum or Jrue Holiday, in my opinion. Yes, he should get some minutes, but Halliburton should get some playing time as well because he's a phenomenal point guard. He can run the show. He can play make. It just gives you another option to throw at the opponent. Now, I've got no problem with Draymond Green here. He's just providing his analysis and his opinion. I know his coach is on Team USA, But at the end of the day, if it's a questionable decision, you can call them out. That's all Draymond was doing there. Now, I want to get into the other discourse about Jayson Tatum because I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like him. They say, oh, he's on a franchise, but he's got a great GM. He's lucky to be playing for a franchise who can put talent around him. I think that is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Because on the flip side of that, when a superstar player isn't getting the help he needs, what do fans normally say? Oh, this guy needs help. He needs a better roster. The GM needs to step up. We can't have it both ways. You can't say on one end, oh, Jayson Tatum's getting all this help. And on the other side, you're crying for your best superstar not having enough help. Like, it's a contradiction to me. I'm not saying that Tatum doesn't need to get better because I believe his shooting numbers need to improve because the past two playoffs have not been good with shooting. I personally believe a lot of that was because he didn't have a championship and he was chasing that one championship. Now he has it. I think some of that pressure will come off him. I'm not saying the pressure will go away, but I do think him getting that first ring and closing out game 5 the way he did is taking that burden off of him. Another thing I see in the discourse is Jayson Tatum is somehow a glorified role player, that he's really inconsistent. And I get it. There are times where he doesn't score the ball efficiently, but during this playoff run, he found other ways to impact the game. It was through his rebounding, his playmaking, his defense. There's a lot of other things that Tatum was doing that doesn't show up in scoring. Now, do I think he's a top 5 player? I don't right now, but I think he could creep into that top 5 if he has shooting splits of, like, let's say 49, 50% from the field. He shoots it at 38, 39% from 3, and he's averaging 26, 27 points a game, getting you 8 assists on, let's say, 70 rebounds a night. Those are good numbers. Maybe not like the James Harden or Luka Doncic inflated numbers, but those are still really good numbers for a playoff run. And if Jayson Tatum is more consistent in the fourth quarter, where he's taking over games, he gets you like 10 points, and he hits some crucial buckets down the stretch, then the narrative is going to keep changing for Jayson Tatum. I just think a lot of this just has to do with jealousy from people. I think if he wasn't playing for the Celtics, or let's just say he wasn't playing for the Lakers, and he was on the Thunder, and they got to a championship, and he was the leading catalyst, I think people would feel different about him. The last thing I want to talk about is this idea, if we just put any superstar next to Jaylen Brown, they're still going to win a championship. My issue with that is roster construction matters in the NBA. So let's just say, for example, we put SJ on the Celtics next to Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Jrue Holiday, Kristaps, and Horford. Great roster, right? But here's the problem. Who's going to guard the Dallas bigs now? Because you don't have the versatility like you do with the Jayson Tatum. SJ is not as strong. He's great in isolation. He can score the bucket. That's awesome. But on the defense side of the ball, their strategy is going to change, and it opens up the potential for Dallas to get more lobs. And if you don't have a guy out there who's versatile on the perimeter or with your wings, all of a sudden Dallas can attack that mismatch. Let's say we put Anthony Edwards out there. Is he still as versatile as Tatum to guard 1 through 5? No, he's not. He's great. He's only going to get better. But you see what I'm saying? Like, roster construction does matter in the NBA. And we can talk all day about this scenario, that scenario. The reality is you need the right pieces to complement your superstar players. And Tatum and Brown are perfect for each other. Like I said, I think the last two things that Tatum needs to do to really elevate his game even more is a consistent package where he's finishing at the rim and also finishing from the mid-range. If he works on those two things and gets better, he is going to be unstoppable. If I had to put Tatum in my top 10 where I would list him 6 right now, just because of the versatility he brings on the basketball court. Also, the playoff runs, getting to multiple conference finals, that requires intangibles and leadership. And Tatum has shown to get better at that year in and year out. And we can't forget the Game 6 in Milwaukee, the Game 7 last year against the Sixers. Like, he shows up when you need him. Sure, he does disappear at times, and I will admit that. There are moments where he's just not that good. But at the end of the day, if you're winning and getting me to the finals, I want you on my team. I still think it's premature to label Jayson Tatum as a guy who can't be a number 1 option on a championship team, especially when he's coming into his prime years and he just won a championship. I think that takes the pressure off of him. Now, if this continues where he's inconsistent, his shooting splits aren't that good, he's not hitting the shot consistently, then yeah, I will wave the white flag. But until then, I got to see more. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what Draymond Green had to say about Steve Kerr benching Jayson Tatum and the discourse around Jayson Tatum. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.